story to us about when she was in college. And she said, I remember when I was in college, I was drinking too much. I parked my car on the Taco Bell lot, and a cop came and knocked on the window. It was like, "You okay?" It's like, "Well, I'm okay. I'm sleeping because I've been drinking." And he basically said, "Well, you give me your number and go on a date with me. I won't give you a DUI." And she went on a date. Nothing happened. But the point is that was wrong.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Who doing it like this?
Yeah, he was a campus police officer, said, and she went on a date with him, one date, and that was it. But he will be charged with a Class E felony under this bill.
That's crazy, man.
But think about how far to the left that could have went.
That's somebody's daughter in college, somebody's son in college.
That's crazy.
That could be impacted by that. And then another thing that the bill did, we had a use of force database. Now we can keep track of situations where high or excessive force has been used. They identify the situation, the agency, the officer involved, pretty much all the details. So now we know that, and that's going to be on a public database. And when you go and pursue a job as a police officer today under this bill, if you leave Jennings and go to Hazelwood or Ferguson, now Chief Armstrong in Ferguson, he can disclose. So if somebody leave my department, I can go over to Chris and say, "Hey man, he got an investigation going. We didn't conclude it, but this is what it was about. So you might want to use your discretion on whether or not you hire this guy."
Right.
And now I have immunity from Jeff Rorter and the Police Officers Association coming to sue me for disclosing details of this investigation because this person departed the agency before we concluded the investigation.
Now, Senator, I got to ask you about that. And I know, Marco, I know you're going to have, I wanted to get this in before you got it in. I can only imagine the heat that would have come down from the police officers union and whatnot when they saw that. That's one of those things where you look at what happens. And you're just like, you undercut a lot of what they were using to take that privilege and to just basically give people that immunity. And it brings it back around to me, the things that you're saying about, where police officers work at and who can work where and who's eligible to do that. Because, let's expand it. What stops somebody from out in Rockwood who has something saying, "I'm just going to go work in St. Louis City now," and be in a place where they have a much different view on the people that are in that space, and you don't know what they did in Rockwood? They couldn't previously speak to that. You couldn't disclose that. So what it does is keep bad officers from department hopping. And y'all all know
that's what
they go from different police departments and all over the region and the state. And then it also has what's called a wrap back program. So it now extended, and this was something that we work with the Highway Patrol on, is now if somebody applies for a law enforcement job, not only do they do the state, but a federal background check. So it's 30 days that they have to do this background check and make sure that this person didn't have any type of incidents or anything that happened prior to their hiring. So now that's another layer of vetting that they're doing for these officers. And then we moved on into something that's more criminal justice reform, which I think is very, very powerful. We had another bill that now I already hit my quota on bills that can come out of committee. My one bill is like, all right, man, you got a big bill. This is enough. Like, and I guarantee you, there's probably people on both sides. Like, you went in too much. This is enough. Enough is enough. So I had another bill that I wanted. And keep in mind, if you look at my record, I only file bills that I think I can pass. So like, I don't just file stuff just to file it. So everything I filed, I want to pass. I'll try to, at least.
You competitive? Anybody ever said you're competitive?
I just don't file a bunch of bills. Like, people come to me all the time with stuff, and I'm like, man, that's just not my issue. I'm not going to focus on that. So, what's the point of me doing that? And I know it's a job for you too, but I don't see a point of me filing a bill that I can't even explain to people why I filed it. So I just don't do it. So anyway, I filed this bill. It's clean slate. It deals with expungement. Now, this bill is just as important to me as police reform. So we start working through the process. The bill gets out the Senate. Now, keep in mind, relationships matter. So I go to Caleb Rowder, the majority floor leader in the Senate. Now, what the majority floor leader does—
he's also a Republican, correct?
He's Republican. Anybody that matter up there is a Republican.
Right.
So
I did a chart for the Missouri state senators, and I looked at like who's on committees, who the chairs, who the vice chairs. There's only like one committee that has a chair as a Democrat.
Progress and Development.
Only one.
Yep, I'm the vice
Only
chair.
out of all
Who's the chair?
Jill. Jill was
Jill
the most.
Shute.
Jill was the most
Jill Shute.
senior. So when
out
Jill
of all
leave,
of the
I'll be chair.
committees in the state of Missouri are led by a Republican chair and vice chair.
For sure.
Wow.
If you go look, if you got time, look up the House. You see.
What
the
about
same
in the
thing.
House? The House, you got one, right?
Yeah,
still
you got
one
Representative Prouty
Prouty's-
over
one.
Urban Affairs. So anyway, now I got to go talk to Caleb. I'm like, hey, look, man, I need your help. He's like, okay. Now keep in mind, now he's in control of the entire calendar for every bill that's filed in the Senate. So now he got to figure out how to get this Democrat controversial bill on the calendar and done at some point. And let me tell you what the race is. The race isn't no other bill than this controversial bill that say you can run over people if they protesting. You could charge people with a felony for blocking the streets. And I need my bill to get out before this one do.
Right.
And the reason why is because I'm against it.
Right.
So if I get out there and I block this bill, guess what they're gonna do to my
Blocked.
So I go to
The
Caleb
Kimbank.
and I'm like, hey,
Tumbo.
it's done. They knock it to the other side of the court. So I go to Caleb and I'm like, and this is where the relationships matter, where you gotta get to know people and it can't always just be black and white.
Yep.
So I go to Caleb and I said, look, man, I need a favor. I need my bill to come up and we got to get it out the Senate before this bill. And believe it or not, man, every Republican don't like every Republican.
No,
And that's another thing that
right.
people,
That's
that's what people don't understand.
Yeah.
So he looked at me he's like, okay, now he don't want to promise me, but he says, okay. And you could tell he's looking like, I don't know how I'm gonna figure this out, but I'm gonna do it for you.
You just cost him a couple hours of sleep.
Oh, I just cost him more than enough. Because guess what? I need the bill to come up early.
Yep.
Because I got it. Look, it still got to go through the House. Like it still got to go through an entire different process and then come back to us. Like it ain't enough days in a year. So Caleb I get the bill up and we get it out and I get the bill out. Literally, what, Rob, like a couple hours before the other bill came up.
Mm-hmm.
So we get our bill out right before we go to recess at noon. We take a lunch break. My bill gets out. I'm like, thank God. That bill come up. We had to lay it over because people was just all over it. Oh man. Because I did not, because guess what? I wasn't gonna not block it. So now I'm like, man, I can't not block it. So my bill gets out. As soon as that bill come up, I'm like, man, this bill horrible. I'm blocking it. I'm filibustering, doing all kinds of stuff. And they like, dang, we can't do nothing to him because this bill is done.
Mm-hmm.
So my bill gets out, it goes to the House. But to get back to the point of the bill, it has expungement language in it. And basically in Missouri, last special session, the governor decided to do a special session that would make someone as young as the age of 12 years old to be charged as an adult and also housed with adult prisoners.
Yeah.
We raised the age back up to 18. So no one under the age of 18 can be charged as an adult or housed with adult inmates. We took the expungement law, which today, before this bill was passed, if you were charged with a nonviolent offense, felony, you would have to wait 7 years after getting off probation. So 7 years after getting off papers to be able to even be eligible for an expungement.
That's crazy.
Man, think about
Good
how much
Lord.
stuff can happen to you in 7 years.
Yeah.
7 years
That's
without
a
a
lot.
job.
Yeah.
And so we rolled that back to 3 years. We cut that more than in half. And if you have a misdemeanor, nonviolent offense, is 1 year after you get off probation, which it was 3 years before.
I like this bill. I like that.
And then we also had some more language, which was really important, which is going to benefit your local prosecutors. So for everybody that's huge supporters of Kim Gardner, Wesley Bell in St. Louis County, right now we know that it's people that look like all of us that are in prison for crimes they didn't commit.
Right.
We know that.
Right.
So Lamar Johnson had a case that went all the way to the Supreme Court. And the only reason why they didn't win that case is because there was technical language that said a local prosecutor could not provide evidence from a crime that somebody committed. It would have to go under the scope of the attorney general. We put in language called the motion to vacate. And basically what the motion to vacate would do is allow Wesley Bell or Kim Gardner to provide substantial evidence to the courts that would allow that case to be reopened and ultimately get a new trial. So anybody that's been put in prison unlawfully, we can provide that information, and now we can have that evidence submitted in a new trial to determine the facts on whether or not that person committed a crime. I ain't even going through everything, but I just touched on the big parts of it. Today, when that bill goes in, that bill would have to either be signed into law or automatically go into law by August 28th, unless the governor vetoes it. He's not going to veto it because we made sure he had something he wanted in it.
Right.
And what they wanted was the residency. There's no language to run over protesters. There's no anti-protester language. There's no anti-Black Lives language. The only thing we did to help law enforcement with that bill was lift the residency. We negotiated it to where you can't live no more than 30 miles from the Kansas City Police Department, and you can't live in Kansas. So we negotiated
which
that,
is massively important. On
they
that side
wanted,
of
they
this.
wanted, they wanted Kansas, and they wanted 60 miles. We gave them 30 miles, and you can't live outside of Missouri.
Right.
Okay.
And then we gave the sheriffs a raise, and that was something that Vernon Betts wanted.